Welcome to the 46th Annual Teaching Assistant Conference. 46! 1973. You're just getting warmed up, right, Chris? You guys made it. Congratulations. That's amazing. I'm so glad you're here, and I'm so glad you're about to embark, maybe for the first time, your teaching career, which has been, for me, the most meaningful aspect of my graduate experience. My name's Jake. I'm with the Center for the Advancement of Teaching. That's one of the many groups on campus that I'm sure you're getting dizzy trying to keep track of. I was once a first-year graduate student myself, so I can relate. And that's what the Center of the Advancement for Teaching is for, to relate to you and help you relate to your students. Before I turn it over to a couple of experts, I'd like to emphasize the importance of managing your time, picking your battles, getting rest, and taking care of yourself. Your health is really important, and we need you to be operating at the best level you can, and that means getting your sleep. It's really important, and it's very easy to lose track of with so many tempting opportunities at UCLA and on campus. There's just so much, and you can get caught up very easily. So please, take care of yourself. Set some time aside to just recharge and get the batteries going. Before we get too far, I'd like to ask you to close your eyes without falling asleep. I know it's early, but close your eyes and picture a time when you had a meaningful, impacting teaching experience. A time when you learned something so effective in the classroom or in the lab or with a coach on the field, your grandmother in the kitchen, an immersive and transformative learning experience. Imagine that moment. Okay. Open your eyes. How many of you imagined a lecture by a brilliant professor in front of a PowerPoint? Not too many. Okay, how about a group discussion? A few more. How about while writing an essay, designing a lab project, homing in on a performance, or practicing a second language? Now look around. Active learning has won all of you over who have raised your hands. This is great. We don't have to try to make believers out of you. We don't have to try too hard. Instead, you'll find that we'll offer to work with you over the next 2 days to help you build your teaching toolkits, preparing you to jump into the classroom as soon as this week. How many of you are teaching this week? There's a few. How many of you are teaching for the first time this week? All right. Again, look around. You guys are here to take care of each other as well as we'll be taking care of you. Instead of sitting quietly and taking notes with the option to ask a question in the final few minutes, our workshops ask you to participate throughout each 90-minute session. I hope you can tell that this conference is built on participations. Our sessions ask you to co-create knowledge with your fellow workshop leaders. By the end of tomorrow, you'll be able to lead sections using active learning strategies, assignment scaffolding, and innovative approaches to collaborative learning, while fostering vibrant inclusivity in your classrooms. And you'll have created a network of fellow UCLA TAs from all over campus who you can turn to ideas when you're unsure about your own progress. To that end, we have 2 receptions that I hope you'll attend. The first is today's, and that's for first-time TAs. If you haven't taught at UCLA before, please join us for coffee, dessert, and tea after the 3rd session. We'll have a raffle as well with some pretty lucrative prizes. At the end of day 2, everyone is welcome to join us at the closing reception, and opportunities to build your network of fellow teachers will continue throughout the academic year. We also welcome you to join your fellow teachers for coffee and donuts later this fall at one or more of our many planned workshops. And when the weight of grading begins to bear down, join us for our grading gatherings, pizza, snacks, and guidance if you ask for it, and camaraderie as you grade essays, exams, performances, and more. And now I'd like to introduce our speakers today. Chris Mott has been the TA coordinator in the English department since 1995. In that time, TA training has grown from a few scattered workshops to a rich curriculum aimed at preparing tomorrow's faculty and maintaining and improving the quality of undergraduate instruction at UCLA. In addition, since 2010, Mott has led a pedagogy seminar for the Collegiate of University Teaching Fellows, a program that encourages dissertation stage graduate students to design and teach a course based on their dissertation. Besides his formal academic work with pedagogy, Ma also is a faculty consultant for the Center for Digital Humanities, the Center for the Advancement of Teaching, UCLA's first-year experience, CERTL, CREST, and a member of the Cross-Campus Innovations Group. I thought I was talking about not taking too much on. And my idol, I'll add. Erin Sanders O'Leary is director of the UCLA Center for Education, Innovation, and Learning in the Sciences, SEALS. Lots of acronyms are going to be coming hard and fast in the next 2 days, where she works to create a collaborative community of instructors committed to advancing teaching excellence, assessment, diversity, and scholarship in the life and physical sciences at UCLA. She teaches in microbiology, immunology, and molecular genetics, and is an academic administrator in Life Sciences Core Education Department, a program coordinator for UCLA postdocs, longitudinal investment in faculty training, otherwise known as Uplift. Jesus, names. Sanders O'Leary is also an administrative co-leader for UCLA's Center for the Integration of Research, Teaching and Learning. This is CERTL at UCLA, which you'll become more familiar with, which supports professional and career development of graduate students, among many others. So please give it up for Chris Motz.
Okay, so for me, the definition of teaching is fostering the creation of knowledge through collaboration. And I think collaboration puts the lab in learning. So what I mean by that is that provides a space, and as a teacher, I take it upon myself to create a space, a learning environment where my students learn from each other. A lot of educational studies tell us that students learn best when they can work from prior knowledge and build on that. That works in the collaborative environment as well. Works in teaching, as I've said already, to reduce your stress. I'm going to try to do a little bit of experimentation today, if you'll bear with me. I think this is important for you to do both as a teacher and a scholar to kind of push your comfort zone a little bit. As a scholar, you're trying to go a little bit beyond what you've done previously as a student, trying to push your boundaries a little bit. Same thing as a teacher. Try to push a little bit beyond it. So today, I'm going to use a tool that I have never used before, an online tool that promotes active learning in large lecture halls like this, and it's called Mentimeter. So if that breaks, here's the stress reducer. Always have a plan B. I've got my magic markers ready, so if Mentimeter goes to hell on me, then we'll work together with that. But this is become an experimenter as a teacher. I think that's helpful for you, keeps you lively and stuff. New and different methods. We're going to do Mentimeter. Another thing for you to understand about scholarly teaching is that we at UCLA actually have some programs that will help you become scholar-teachers, which is actually a pretty heavy trend in higher education now. A lot of people, a lot of graduate students are publishing pedagogical articles about their experiences as teachers because they've participated in programs such as the one that Erin has with her program at SEALS. This one I've been told is for faculty. It's scholarship in teaching and learning, but there's one that's attached to CERTL, which you'll hear more about later. A lot of letters we're throwing at you. That's STAR, which is scholarship in teaching and research. Throw these things out there and I try to get you all the words. These are opportunities all through CAT, which is putting on this conference today, and through EPIC, which is the humanities version of SEALS. So I strongly advise that you kind of look into these possibilities of becoming a scholar teacher. of learning the methods of producing knowledge about pedagogy in your own teaching experience. Okay, and so that's kind of what we're going to be doing together today. Okay, let's try this out. While I'm screwing up the technology, let's do this. Watch this one, Aaron Sanders O'Leary. Are you ready for this? Could you partner? We're going to collaborate a little bit right now in this big-ass lecture hall, which is the worst learning environment ever created according to all the data we have amassed over the last century about active learning and collaborative learning. This is the worst environment for active learning and collaborative learning, but we're going to defeat it. We're going to defeat the environmental challenge here. So if you could work with the person to your left, partner with the person to your left, partner with the person to your left, and if the folks at the end of the rows, if you end up where the person has their back to you, could you please make that groups of 3 instead of partners so that no one's left out? Okay, are there any questions about what I'm asking you to do? Person to your left. Correct. Well, what do you mean? You do what? Every other
person, look to your left. You guys are smart people. Come on.
Sorry, I gave you a math problem. Every other person to your left, except the end of the rows, and then if you need to join up, then join up. Are we okay now? Okay. If you would take a couple of minutes and share with each other your values about why teaching matters. That's my question to you to work on together. Why does teaching matter? I'm going to try to get the Mentimeter thing up, and you can use your electronic devices that I assume you have, and if you don't, steal some from somebody else. And you can put it up there. So go ahead and start talking to each other. Now's the noise. What did we just do? We collaborated. What else did we do? We engaged with each other. That's a nice elaboration on collaboration. I like that. What else did we do? Built. We built relationships. I hope so. Because relationships mean not just a one-time, well, for some people. Okay, but not usually just a one-time deal, right? But this becomes something that continues and you feel like, hey, I can depend on for something else. Did we not create knowledge? Is that not what that's an archive, kids. That's knowledge right up there. Okay, I'm going to take notes on that. There are some ideas up there worth thinking about further. In fact, I'll say even more, there are some ideas up there I would like to think about in my practice of teaching. Am I doing some of these things as I practice my teaching? So great things. The people who put pay and money up there, come see me afterwards, because you might be in the wrong place for, we don't get jack squat for money. No, my wife works for Johnson & Johnson Vision, and there are folks, I am hurt every day by seeing what people with just a bachelor's degree, and they start at $180,000 a year as their base. I'm not doing this to scare you. This is reality. Do not get into this for the money. There are many more lucrative things to do. Okay, that was a fun experiment. Let's look at what some other folks have to say about it. I think you've created knowledge equivalent to the experts. Bell Hooks says some similar things to what I saw up there. Not merely to share information, intellectual and spiritual growth. I think I saw growth. Did I not see growth as one of our? I sure did. Let's see what else we have. Fear there's to listen ethically to the diverse ethics. I think I saw some synonyms for ethics up there. Voices that make up a democratic society, skills to evaluate. I think that became part of our knowledge that we created. So already you're sharing with folks who are professionals. Here's what the students say about why teaching matters. These are the folks who really will make a difference for you in your sense of your success. Relationships. I think we heard relationships. Isn't that what this student, kind of the theme of this comment? Students learn about what relationships mean and how to make meaningful relationships. Accessibility. Accessibility. Creating learning environments that are accessible to all your students. Inclusivity. A lot of the workshops here will address inclusivity and accessibility. So you'll have an opportunity to learn more about that. This is way too much for you to take in at one time. My point in bringing this slide to your attention is not to intimidate you, but just the opposite, to let you know that in that matter of creating an accessible, inclusive space for your students, you have many, many resources at UCLA to lean on. Take your time to learn about some of these resources, put names to these acronyms, and call them up. Call them up and say, hey, how can I make my classroom a safer space? I think I saw a safe space as part of our archive that we put together. How can I create that? What do I do? How do I create a syllabus that's the most accessible syllabus that we know how, with our knowledge today, we know how to create? People have this. You don't have to start from scratch. Take the burden off your shoulders and share it with others. So this is the thing that I want to point out to you. Resources exist at UCLA. The World Wide Web is a wonderful tool. You can find these resources easily. Please do. Here's my caveat to you, and to echo what Jake told you earlier. Please take care of yourself. A stressed out teacher is not good for anybody. It's not good for you, and it's not good for your students. So you need to take care, the caregiver has to take care of herself. Okay? Eat, sleep, the basic stuff. I know that's hard sometimes. It's a matter of priorities. Studies, you can do the scholarly thing. Studies show that rested people are more productive than exhausted people, huh? So, take a note there. Take care of yourself. Lean on your union. If your labor is being exploited, you have a union. Contact them, have them represent you, file a grievance. Do not just go along with it. Protest. There are resources available for you that. Reduce stress with some of the strategies you can learn at the conference here. I strongly advise using the time management workshop, stress and anxiety toolkit. I went to the stress and anxiety workshop myself during the year, and I picked up a couple of really helpful techniques that have allowed me to slow myself down on some occasions when I found the heart racing a little bit and stuff. Handling grade complaints and stuff, that's very stressful. Grading is the most stressful thing we do as teachers. Great workshop to help you get some techniques and strategies for reducing your stress on that. Okay, let's see if we can collaborate one more time. I'm getting cocky now. I made it work once. Okay, here we go. We do that. And then we go to this other thing. Mentimeter 2. Okay, you ready? I'm going to give you 2 minutes again. Same groups. Let's collaborate one more time. What are the UCLA teaching resources that you're aware of? UCLA, let's name. What did I do wrong this time? What happened? Is the what? None? Okay, 4, 3, 2, 1. Excellent. Great resources. Thank you very much. I think you guys listed some resources that I haven't heard of, but let's see if I can add to that one. You guys had CAT? You guys had SEALs? Did you have, anybody had the UCLA Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Office? Did you have that one up there? They have teaching resources on there. They have a couple of really good short, like 8 to 10 page guides on how to create an inclusive classroom, how to create equitable education. So that one, LGBTQ, did anybody have the LGBTQ Resource Center on there? Excellent teaching resources there again, creating a safe space for your classroom. UCLA Student Affairs, SAO, those are the folks who run all the residential life kind of things, first year experience, all that. Tons of wonderful resources. Go to their website, steal like crazy. Strangely, huh? Division of Undergraduate Education. Anybody list that one? That's actually the folks who are supposed to be doing all the teaching of undergraduates. Yeah, so you might check those guys out too for the resources. So again, excellent creation of knowledge. Let's go see just real quick. So this is the SEALs site. These are the things that are available. Designing your course in the classroom, evaluating experience teaching. It's all right there. All kinds of resources there for you. So after going to some of the workshops here, if you want to continue your learning about the teaching, here's some online resources where you can go back, refresh, extend your knowledge of it. Okay, so just gonna kind of wrap up one more time. Repeat what I've told you before. Please reduce your stress as a teacher first and foremost by realizing you never teach alone. You never teach alone. There are tons of online resources. There are tons of human resources. Please lean on those resources. reduce your stress, increase the quality of your teaching. Thank you very much and good luck.
All right, good morning. So we have about 18 minutes left in this session. I actually want to start us out with a reflection, and I've got some questions up here. I want you to take about 30 seconds to kind of think about this. So as an undergraduate student, when you were confronted by academic setbacks, maybe you got your first C on a paper, or you got an assignment that was turned in late and you lost credit for it. You didn't do as well as you'd hoped on that first physics exam. How did you react? As a graduate student, whether you're a new graduate student, whether you've been here for a few years, how have you reacted to difficulties and disappointments in your research, in your scholarship, in your coursework? In other areas of your personal or professional life, how do you react to challenges in general? And when you think about this, when you are confronted by setbacks, challenges, disappointments, difficulties, does this affect your motivation? Does it affect your self-confidence? Do you start having doubts about your abilities or your sense of belonging? What I'd like to spend the next several minutes with you thinking about is really understanding the impact of motivation and mindset and learning and the interplay between these constructs and how this really affects your teaching and your interaction with our UCLA students who will be in your classrooms this year. So I hope you will leave with this idea that mindset is everything. It can really play a critical role in not only motivating your students' success, but also in your own professional development and in trying to find those times to balance your priorities and the things that are important to you across multiple facets of your graduate education. So, how many of you have heard of mindset? Okay, great. About half of you. So just to make sure that we're all on the same page. So mindset is sometimes referred to by different terms, implicit theory, lay theory. But the bottom line is that it comes down to being a belief that we hold about the malleability of human characteristics. And those may be anything from personality to intelligence. And so I really want to talk a little more deeply and contrast the difference between a growth and a fixed mindset. So what's the difference? So in thinking about, usually I do this and it's scripted and I have a partner up here and I can give you an example of how a student might react when they're coming from the perspective of a fixed versus growth mindset. But there are different components of this. And depending on the perspective that you're coming at a problem or you're coming at a challenge, whether or not the skills, the challenges, the effort, the feedback, and the setback component, the reaction to that is different. So with a fixed mindset, there is this idea that the skills or abilities you have are innate. They're something that you're born with. Whereas a growth mindset, in contrast, it's this idea that you come away from things having put effort in and put hard work, you're determined, focused, persevere, and you can get better. You can always improve, and the focus is on improvement and not necessarily the outcome of that. It has to do with the way that you confront challenges or setbacks. So do you give up? Do you try to avoid that condition in the future? Do you feel like your self-confidence is somehow compromised? And so you want to avoid feeling uncomfortable. Whereas with a growth mindset, when you encounter a challenge or a setback, you embrace that. Like, okay, this is another opportunity for me to learn, to improve. I can take something away from this. I can always take something back. Effort really does, and this comes into when you're thinking about teaching, whether or not you're rewarding for effort. Whether or not putting effort in versus just that grade matters. And when we think about students and the way they prioritize studying for exams, so if we're not really praising and rewarding effort, then that focus really does become on that outcome. And so that takes away from the focus being on learning the process. How is it that I can take skills that I'm learning in one context and transfer it to another effectively? How can I really learn something, the skills and the competencies I need to succeed in any walk of life? Feedback. If you tend to get defensive, if you get critical feedback, that tends to come from a fixed mindset perspective. Whereas if you embrace feedback, again, as an opportunity to really improve, right, and to not get defensive, it's viewed as something useful, and that's not easy to do for all of us. I certainly remember the first time I gave my practice talk for my orals when I was doing my PhD many years ago, and the first bit of feedback I got, my reaction initially was pushback, like, oh, I know what I'm talking about. Like, I had this whole vision for how my presentation was going to go, and I was just getting feedback that it wasn't quite coming across the way I had hoped. And so really stepping back and be able to take feedback in a positive way. And then again, this idea of setbacks, where you're taking feedback, you're taking the challenge, and you're turning it into something that enables you to work harder, that motivates you to work harder, and doesn't actually contribute to your decision, for example, to bail, to leave. And we see that with some of our students, in that they get frustrated in coursework, they feel like they don't belong, and they're not getting sort of this reinforcing growth mindset message from us and from their peers and from their other instructors. And so they leave the discipline. They feel they don't belong. So I want to go back to a reflection for a second. And I want you to think now in terms of this fixed versus growth mindset contrast. In some of the examples in your personal or professional life that you were thinking about earlier, how did you respond? Do you have examples? We're not usually very black and white people. We are very much in the gray area, and we may react one way in some situations and react another way in other situations. So in thinking about your life and your professional life, your personal life, your teaching, your research, where does this play out? Okay, so why does this all matter? Why am I sharing this with you? So as it turns out, there have been decades of research on actually not decades quite yet, about 15 years worth of research on these intelligence theories, looking at whether or not this matters at all in terms of academic success for students. So if students have a growth versus a fixed mindset, can that actually make a difference in their academic outcomes? And as it turns out that, like anything else, depending on how the study was done, we see a variety of outcomes, but what consistently happens is that those who really need it most, those who are the least likely to succeed, those that we are really trying to consider in our classrooms, who may not have had every opportunity, every silver spoon kind of handed to them. They've had to work hard to get here. They may not feel like they belong. They don't have as much money as everybody else or their peers. That these are the students that really promoting a growth mindset can help the most. And what we've seen recently is studies looking at the instructor. So all of you as teaching assistants in your classrooms and the faculty that you'll be working with as part of your instructional team, it actually matters whether or not the instructor has a growth or fixed mindset perspective. So this was a study of some 15,000 students at a large public university like UCLA. There were 150 faculty that were surveyed and their data, academic outcomes data analyzed. And what you see is on the graph on the left is according to a survey in which you can then characterize someone as a growth or fixed mindset perspective, depending on the way you answer the items. They categorized these 150 faculty into these two buckets. And what they saw is in classrooms with faculty who tended to have a fixed mindset perspective about learning and about teaching, that there was a significant achievement gap between the underrepresented, underserved students in the class and their non-underrepresented peers. And that this achievement gap narrowed, and everybody, in fact, actually did better when they were in classrooms in which their instructor really pursued this growth mindset perspective. And this carried over into these course evaluations. So when at the end of the quarter, and you guys will all participate in this as part of your teaching, at the end of the quarter, the students get to give feedback on your teaching. They're asked about, how you did as an instructor. And in this particular context with this study, one of the questions on their course evaluations was whether or not that instructor made you feel motivated in the class. And not surprisingly, I'm sure, the students who had an instructor with a growth mindset perspective actually felt more motivated in their learning than the students who had a fixed mindset perspective. So I want you to think about this because your mindset matters. The approach you're taking with your students, the advice you're giving your students, when somebody fails their first exam, and your response is, you can do it. You just need to study harder. Let me give you some specific tricks and tools that you can use. Let's sit down and break this down. I know you can do this. Out of over 100,000 students who applied to UCLA, you got in here. Less than 5% of the students who applied got into UCLA. You are the best. You are capable of success. You are the best in the state, the best in the country. So I want you to take a minute here. You're a TA in your class, and you have a student come to your office hours, say, I just did poorly on an exam. I'm not cut out for this class, meaning they're not cut out for your course, they're not cut out for the major. Think about your own disciplines. Why might students feel this way? Given your own experiences as an undergrad, why might your students feel this way? How could you respond to them? What might you say? And how might this change how you help them prepare for a future assessment, a future exam, or a future paper? I know Chris had you talking to each other, and I'm having you think. Now, if we had more time, because I want to put on my little facilitator hat here, what I would normally do is I would actually have this be a writing exercise. These questions that I have been asking you throughout, I would ask you to take out a piece of paper, and I would have you write down and think through some of these questions. And then we might do something like you did before, think, pair, share, which is what that's called, where we would then have you turn to your neighbor and kind of talk through some of your ideas and thoughts before we came back to the classroom. So this is a really good tool to engage your students and to get them talking to each other. But sometimes we need to think about these things. We need to be quiet. We need to give space in the room for thinking. And writing is a really good activity to get students to kind of get through these complex thoughts that they're having. So as I said, if we had more time, I would encourage that kind of activity. But I'm going to move on, because we only have 4 minutes left. I want to tell you a little bit about what the students said when we asked them these questions. So you hear a little bit from the students. So when you get motivated to learn versus when you just want a good grade, what is the difference in terms of the classroom environment that your instructor or TA presents. So when an instructor is passionate about what they're teaching, when the instructor asks the questions that are interesting and thought-provoking, just evocative conversations that can come and really create a curious space, a space for students to ask questions where there are never any stupid questions, and probe deeply into their knowledge. If you give them a challenge, something really difficult, those wild problems, and have students work in groups and really think through those problems together and bring diverse perspectives and background experiences to solving that problem. There are other things you can do, whole series of things. And you will have access to all these slides after this today, so you can take a look at this in more detail. But there are some specific ideas you can take into your classroom for promoting a growth mindset, giving students different opportunities to succeed, and really being, I think, transparent about the way in which students can succeed in your class, giving them the opportunity to collaborate together. Chris talked about that just a few moments ago. Making the material relevant to them, using examples that are pulled out of their own social context, not just the traditional historical examples that perhaps you're used to that are sort of systemic to educational curriculum, but really kind of getting out of that space and embracing the diversity of your class and really representing that in the materials you're presenting. So just to kind of take away one final thought here, how might you foster and sustain a growth mindset? Not just with your students, which is what your job is as a TA here at UCLA, but also in your own life as a graduate student here. You're going to be pulled between your scholarship and teaching. Sometimes these responsibilities really conflict with one another. And being able to prioritize and compartmentalize different aspects of your professional development as a graduate student, a TA here, is really going to help you not stress as much, create space and time for the sleep you need to come in with a clear and cool head for when you're teaching, so that you can be patient with students who may need different levels of help and different ideas for trying to pull that together. So one of the tools that I would recommend you take away is this is the Eisenhower grid, in which the quadrants contrast importance of a task versus the urgency of a task. And what you're going to find as a teaching assistant and a graduate student is there's going to be a whole heck of a lot of things that you seem to be putting in that box of urgent and important. And those are things like grading exams, getting homework assignments back to students in a timely way. But you're also going to need to pay attention to this other box, this important, but maybe not so urgent. This is where those of you who are new to teaching may want to put your 495 TA training course. These workshops that you're taking time out of a very busy schedule that you are all going to have as graduate students to make time for some professional development that's going to help you not only be better teachers while you're here, but is going to create transferable skills that you're going to take into your career no matter what you do, whether you're in academia, whether you move out of academia. Communication skills, ability to articulate yourself clearly, and being a personable person with a diverse group of people are all skills that you can use, develop, and really hone as a teaching assistant here at UCLA. So I'm going to leave you with that. I really hope that you have a wonderful fall. Today is the first day of autumn, so we are truly starting fall. Summer is over. You have a wonderful conference, and just remember, growth mindset. It will get you through the next 5 to whatever years of your life here. All the way to the end. So thank you very much, and you guys have a great day.